Hi boys and girls, it's Socio back with another video. Today we're looking to cover Manchester United's centre of defensive midfield once more, but now we're going to be looking at Fred and McTominay in more in depth, and Manchester United's main midfield partnership as of 2021 season rather than this season in particular. McTominay has had injury problems, so he's not been part of that midfield, but we'd very much expect him to fill a double pivot next to Fred again once he's fit, as we've seen in the last couple of games. With Pogba next to Fred, there's a real lack of defensive cover, positioning solidity there, and so I very much imagine Solskjaer will revert back to type there. Now, in relation to this, please put in the comments whether you think it is the personnel that's the issue in Manchester United in terms of Fred and McTominay, Pogba, Matic, and those kind of combination of players, or whether you think it's actually Manchester United's tactics under Solskjaer, and whether they're caught between two minds of whether to push up higher in the pitch, get a bit of a press on, or whether to sit deep and hit teams on the counter-attack, and if they're struggling to identify which is best for the opposition. Now, I'm going to cover Fred and McTominay predominantly, but like I said, I'm going to dip into our midfield options as transfer targets at Manchester United and other sort of partnerships in midfield and how effective they have been. Okay, so we're going to start with Fred here to begin with. Now, we look at Fred's heat map here, very much a classical midfielder's heat map. It covers the vast majority of the pitch. This is last season's statistics you can see here. So they're busy players, defensive midfielders. They'll get about the pitch. Now, if their team is a team that is going to keep large portions of possession, which Manchester United predominantly would, just because they've got higher quality, even if, like I say, we're quite poor against low blocks, we would have possession. Fred would then be allowed and able to go higher on the pitch like this, going across this heat map, as you can see my mouse hovering here, and then it will allow him to be in a much higher position to sort of press teams across their own half here, but very much in a position to put out fires for the left back and right back going across, and yeah, like very much covers the majority of the centre of the pitch. Now, if we compare this to Scott McTominay, and this is last season's, you can see classically this is not a defensive midfielder's heat map. He very much does not feel an equal in a double pivot. He is going to be box to box, running up this right hand channel. He's been deployed like this to balance out Manchester United's formation, because we offered attack down the left hand side with Luke Shaw going across this side on the left hand side, and then we have Bruno would gravitate over here because this is where the most effective football of Manchester United is. Rashford would be over here as well, and then depending on how we're linking up, the striker might drift in here as well. And so because of that, there needs to be a balance. McTominay very much slots in across this right hand side where the heat map is, and then he'll often get onto switched inside balls, or if a breakdown of play does occur in the attacking box, it often would be coming to McTominay to mop up and get a shot off, or to recycle possession down this right hand side. Okay, so that as you can see in terms of United's midfield, how they are set up. Now, if you compare this to, I'm going to go to Chelsea's midfield. Now, just bear with me a moment. I'm just going to switch this to the Premier League season of the same year, 2020-21. Jorginho, here you go. Deep line playmaker. Very much similar to how Fred's is. It's a heat map that covers a large majority of the pitch. He's looking to cover all areas because they've got perfect balance in their midfield. And then if you compare this to N'Golo Kante, a very similar heat map because they have a very equal double pivot. Okay, so they know each other's jobs. Jorginho often the fixed midfielder out of the two. Kante given more of a license to actually go and press the ball, use his physicality up the pitch. That's why his heat map is more patchy, because he pops up in different areas of the pitch. But you can see very much a balance in their midfield compared to Manchester United, which is very much imbalanced. Now, if we move on to a particular game, which I want to show you here, I'm just going to isolate Wolves versus Manchester United in the Premier League just before the international break, which Manchester United somehow managed to win 1-0. Now, if you look at João Moutinho and Ruben Neves, going to pull up their heat maps, and I'm going to pull up Pogba, and I'm going to pull up Fred as well. Just bear with me on this one. Okay, it's being a bit finicky here. Oh, there's Fred. He's decided to appear. He's not gone missing today. So we have the heat maps here. Now, if you look at this heat map at the moment, you can see, I mean, from this game itself, and you can see United's ball possession compared to Wolves. If you look at down the statistic channel here on the left-hand side of the screen, I'm a little bit in the way actually. I'm just going to move myself briefly so you can see this. So in this area, we have United at 56% possession, Wolves at 44%. You know that United are going to be naturally, because of having more possession over the course of 90 minutes, even if there's isolated instances of Wolves' pressure and domination, it's going to affect the heat map over here. So if we look at the heat map again, we have Ruben Neves very much in this right-hand channel, but is a fixed position. As I mentioned before, we look at Wolves' system here. Max Kilman and Seiss very much going to spread when they have possession. If they're not, they'll tuck in next to Connor Cody, and then Semedo comes back, Marcel comes back, slots in, makes it a back five. But when they're on the attack, when they're pushing, or when they decide to press Manchester United, you've got Ruben Neves and Moutinho, they go into a fixed position, they don't move. And as there'll be evidence, if we go back to Wolves versus Manchester United in this game, João Moutinho here as well, very much fixed around this left-hand side, pushed on a few more times, but very, very little movement around the pitch. Now, the heat maps, if you compare it to Manchester United's Paul Pogba and Fred, their heat maps are very much bolder, partly because they've had more possession, they've moved more in the game, but it's also because they've had to deal with more transitions. They very much had to run more within those positions onto the pitch. So if you're people that watch the Wolves versus United game, Fred often had to deal with transitions down this left pocket. This is often because Shaw, he would push on down this left-hand channel. Like I said, this imbalance, United would come across onto this left-hand side. Then the moment we lost the ball, gaps all over the left. Gaps are all over the left frequently, right? It's not the individual players at United's problem. It's the way we're set up. So Fred has a lot to do down this left pocket. That's why he often sets up over there. And now the issue is, if you have a player like Adama Traoré, if we go back to the main map here, Adama Traoré here, he smartly came on the left hand side of the pitch. He would then move across in here. So this gap over here enables teams to get in transition, but all of our players will gravitate to the left to protect this area based on the counter attack, and then the right hand side of Adama Traoré is often freed up on that left channel. So very much an imbalance. Now, if we look at Pogba's heat map, he very much would come on to this right-hand side to provide a bit of balance. But the issue is, if we look at his performance generally, he had some good moments of the game, but under pressure, if we look at the possessions lost here, 19 possessions lost in this game. 19 possessions lost. And then we look at Fred's main statistic, dribbled past 5 times, okay? So Fred was often getting beaten because he doesn't have the physicality to deal with some of the players in transition. We saw him get beat by Francisco Trancao embarrassingly easily. Adama Traoré absolutely devoured him on a couple of occasions. And then Paul Pogba, in contrast, he is in this pivot to be the person that is like essentially the deep line playmaker in this combination, yet he was so poor in this game that he wasn't able to do it. He got more effective once Wolves started to tire, once they maybe sought to seek onto the draw, hold on to that point. Paul Pogba then obviously moved more into an advanced position up the pitch, which enabled him again to be more effective, because we know he is at his most effective in the final third. Okay, now moving on, I'm just going to compare this now to West Ham Leicester City. Now, the reason I'm comparing it to this game here is because we have a quality midfield combination for both West Ham and Leicester. Now this game, West Ham came out on top. They battered Leicester City 4-1. It was mainly down to the fact that their attacking players got high on the press, and this is what I mentioned. You've got to have the ability in the double pivot to be able to play under pressure. If you're not unable to, then they can pick you off. And like I say, the majority of teams in the Premier League now, they're looking for that 1-2 punch once they win the ball back. They win the ball back, 1-2 punch, they get the shots off, and the gaps are usually created because the midfielders and the other players are trying to make options for a pass for the double pivot, and under pressure they often fail to find those passes. So yeah, just looking at this, very, very simple, this one really. We got Tielemans, Wilfred Ndidi, deep line playmaker on the right, enforcer, destroyer on the left. Often a great balance. Okay, so I mean, if we look at Tielemans generally, we go to his statistics from last season. Like I say, classical deep line pivot, very much balanced. You see, you compare this to Manchester United, it is laughably different. They do not cover the same areas of the pitch. It is, like I say, McTominay very much down this right-hand channel, and Fred, like I say, everywhere, but positionally a massive, massive imbalance. Now, in this game in particular, if we go back to West Ham, Leicester City, we had Thomas Souček and Declan Rice. Now, these players, this is arguably, I would suggest, probably in the top 3 centre midfield partnerships in the league. If we put them up there with, I'd go with Jorginho and Kante, very much being arguably the number 1 in terms of just an isolated 2 double pivot. And then we've got Thomas Souček and Declan Rice, I think well up there. And I'd like to say top 3, I would suggest. You have Declan Rice, who's very much the busy player. He's going to cover classical defensive midfielder position, cover the entire pitch on a general heat map. And then Thomas Souček, he often would then push forward, join the attacks. But like I say, they often provide the sort of protection for the other midfielder's weakness. You got Souček's height. He deals with a lot of aerial duels. Declan Rice very much has more of a fleet of foot. Souček is not good on a half turn, so Declan Rice play much more the Fred role, gets tight to stop half turns, stop those kind of like quick, nippy, inverted players to get on the turn. Thomas Souček, like I say, very much going to play the McTominay role, sort of once he gets up to speed, win the aerial duels, make some passing lane interceptions. Okay, but you just see in this game, it's these 2 sets of midfielders, combinations, they just have immaculate balance. Okay, so you've got Destroyer, Declan Rice, Wilfred Ndidi, deep line playmaker in Tielemans, and then Thomas Souček, like I say, often gets himself into the box, but because of the West Ham do not have an imbalance in their team and the way they build up the play, they have equally good left back and right back build up. They have obviously Cresswell on the left, they have Soufal on the right hand side, but the balance is there, which allows Souček to play more of a central position. He's not caught out of position as Manchester United midfield often is. Now, if we move this on to Jorginho and N'Golo Kante finally, which should be the final combination that I'm going to do, we're just going to look at their season statistics on this one. Classical heat map here for defensive midfielder. And a Jorginho, without looking, this will be the exact same heat map. Yeah, exact same heat map here. You can see between N'Golo Kante and Jorginho, balance in the midfield. We've got the combination of the deep line playmaker and the destroyer. Like I say, just to sum up on this, the destroyer does not have to be fixed. It's very, very important distinction between having a destroyer and a deep line playmaker and a double pivot. The deep line playmaker is often fixed. As you can see with Ruben Neves in the Wolves game, and as I mentioned in the way their formation is set up, these 2 are often fixed because they're quite similar which is, I believe, is a slight weakness of Wolves, how actually similar these two are as a midfield pairing. But that's the same kind of weakness as a Manchester United in different ways. I think their weakness is less glaring in that sense. But just to reiterate, you have a double pivot, the deep line playmaker. They're often fixed, especially in possession. What that allows is the enforcer, who often has better legs. It's very much, if you look at all the enforcers across the league, as I say, the main ones that we've been linked with at Manchester United, you've got Declan Rice, you've got Kante, you've got Basuma as well. You've got Ndidi. They're all physical demons. They get up and about the pitch. Like I say, they press on players before they can get on the half turn, before they can turn, get their head up and spring players, and get them the opposition into attacking playing patterns on the counter attack as well. And transitions, they get nice and tight. They get high. Like I say, the modern team now, they like to press high to get that 1-2 punch. Like I say, you win it up high in the opposition half. 1-2 pass, get a shot off, and that's how a lot of teams set up nowadays. And then you have, like I mentioned, the deep line playmaker. He is fixed. He rarely moves. He only moves up the pitch to glue the team together, to recycle possession left and right. And if you have good balance, that person will end up quite central, which enables you to move and shift the play left and right with ease, instead of being in a position where Manchester United struggle to do that. And you have such an imbalance where you have McTominay shifted out far right, and then you have Fred very much on the left-hand side. There's a lack of a fixed pivot in those attacking phases of possession, and so Manchester United struggle to break down low blocks, to maintain that level of sustained pressure on a low block, to shift them left and right. But then they also have the issue that when they're in transition, like I mentioned, Fred's having to double up on the left-hand side due to the imbalance of the way we attack. And McTominay, like I said, because he's sucked out on the pocket on the right-hand side to provide some level of balance to the right-hand side in the attacking third, he's not in a position to help Fred in any way defensively. And yeah, it's very much been exposed more and more. And the cracks were hidden more last season based on actually the performances of the two players. Fred and McTominay were good. They weren't bad. Like I say, their weaknesses are less exposed together. When they're separated, as you saw with Fred and Pogba in that Wolves game, which I've highlighted on the screen here, it's stark. It very much exposes Fred's lack of a passing ability. It very much exposes the imbalance of Manchester United's midfield and how much he tucks to the left. And then if you've got Pogba, who's not going to be as disciplined as McTominay and going down that right-hand channel as we saw in the game, and if he has an off day where he's also not going to keep possession as well as he should, then United are just going to fall apart in midfield, lose every midfield battle arguably across the season, and they're just going to win games on moments. Classic Jose Mourinho football. Be defensively solid. The new signing of Rafael Varane, very much there to sort of just put some plaster on those cracks, just for the season. And like I say, Mason Greenwood, we saw how he started this season. Bruno, often with those penalties or moments of genius. We're just going to be a moments team who's just going to win just with the odd goal and the odd bit of luck or the odd bit of brilliance. And like I say, we're going to revert back to type, and it's going to be McTominay and Mcfred, for the majority of big games across the season. And we will not transform the way we play unless that balance that I've addressed with those heat maps and those combinations of midfielders is addressed either in January or certainly next summer. Okay, so that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit more in-depth analysis. Sorry if it is a mouthful. I thought I'd try something a bit different. Leave your opinions in the comments about that. Like, share and subscribe. And thank you very much for tuning in. Okay, ciao.